communities, and we had a symbol of vision in terms of what we needed to do. We were partners from day one. We met with a fly-in when they came into Washington, D.C., also at the Federation, to fight to get the Congress to do a better job of supporting y'all. And so as we listen to your causes, as we listen to your message, it resonated with us because our people all over the diaspora have the same struggle. But you know what? We will do it together. Together we'll work, we'll keep our eyes on the prize, stay focused, and we will be successful as we have. Remember, our ancestors built the pyramids, so we can do this. We can do this important thing. So I brought an intensive, we do a 6-month course that covers this, that goes from the spring all the way until the fall. What we're doing is, if you give us 5 minutes or 10 minutes, however many minutes you give us, we will try to convey the message that is on our hearts to you. And so we're hoping to take you rapidly through a lot of, through an introduction, the overview of seed farming. But we hope at the end, there's specific questions that you have. We'll be answering those at the end of our presentation. We have 4 presenters actually today. We have, you already met Nate Kleiman. Nate Kleiman is one of the founding members of Ujamaa Cooperative Farming Alliance. And he started really early. We're going to talk about that. We have Rick Carter. Rick Carter is with the Seed Shop, and he's going to talk to you about the business of farming. And we have Hassan Adi, who's my beautiful husband, who's going to talk to you about the web and how we sell and market not just seeds, but value-added products. So we're going to begin right now. Okay? You want to start? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the most important for us to recognize is that there was a beautiful plan when this planet was created. A beautiful plan. The Creator did amazing things and gave us much to choose from, much food. But over the course of time, we have forgotten some of the most basic lessons about survival. So one of the things that we would like to do is to help wake up that memory of what was had and try to do our best to save what's left, the things that we have cluttered away, that we have not realized the importance of. And so those seeds that we showed you just a minute was an example. The kind of biodiversity that is in our land-raised crops, which are original crops, and we are trying to restore those. And so, as you see, this is what the plan that God had, just like the flowers in the field. All that was there. So what we hope to do is to talk to you about how we got started. So first, let me just give you an overview. Well, let's go back to that slide. Let me just say how it's going to go. So we're going to talk about how we got started, our seed saving basics. Raise your hand if you're already saving seed. Oh, that's wonderful. You know, when we first started doing this work, only 20% of our audiences were seed savers. But I don't imagine that's true for y'all, because y'all know what you're doing. We saw beautiful seeds in your market. And then we'll talk about stewardship and the importance of us individually taking responsibility for protecting certain varieties. And then we'll talk about market farming and seed farming and how to do that collectively. A big question was, well, I'm so busy trying to get my crops to market. How can I do another thing? And so we're going to talk about the compatibility and the necessity for us to figure out how to do both things. We're going to talk about organic and small seed, the industry. I think I have one organic farmer here. What, are you certified organic? So do we have any certified organic farmers here? Okay, is that a desire that you have? So we are a part of the organic seed industry, even though our company is not organically certified. We'll talk about why that is in a minute. We're also going to talk about equipment, small things that you can use to process the seed. You're probably already using your hands, you're probably already using some screens and buckets and all kinds of things. We're going to show you how to do it in an economical way. But because you're building out a co-op here, eventually you'll be able to have larger scale equipment based on the desires you have to build out your seed farming work. And how you work with us is the last thing. How you partner with us. So this is the beginning where we do this workshop. We can do online. We started out on Zoom, and we'll talk about that. We were born during COVID, so our meetings with growers all over the world, all over the country, wherever they want to be, they can join us if they agree to two things. If they agree to our mission, which is to grow more BIPOC growers, and if they're willing to work with us and collaborate. Our organization is made up of individuals. We are one man, one vote, one woman, one vote. We make decisions in a cooperative. Not everybody's in love with that because it takes a long time for a democratic organization to function. Everything has to go through many hands. But we'll talk about that as we go on. Okay? All right, so we are based in Acton, Maryland, which is a small town, sits on the Potomac River, just across from Alexandria, Virginia. You probably know it's part of the Washington, D.C. area. And we started out working with teenagers, middle school and high school kids. And our initiative was to grow, increase the number of minority and underserved youth that enter STEM careers. But what we found was that as we went around communities to get support, the people who were most interested in working with us were agricultural organizations. It was so interesting because we talked to space folks and cyber. None of them were interested in working with us. So that was a clarion call to us, that the people who believed in the work that we were doing with you were in agriculture. So I think that most of the direction our organization has gone has been organic. We have grown according to the need and listening to the community, and that's how we make decisions. You probably hear many things about how we started, but everything boils down to what you tell us as farmers, what you tell us as customers, you tell us as partners, and we follow the direction of the community. So we started out with these kids, and we decided that we would want to be raising money other than writing grants. I know you probably have funded many of your programs with grant writing, but we found that for the people who are running organizations, it's very tedious. And so a friend told us really early that you need to add entrepreneurship to the work you do. Any activity you do, how can you have the young people learn to make money and set up jobs for themselves? Always asking somebody else, particularly the grandchildren of your slave masters, of your ancestors' slave masters, always going to them asking for favors. Maybe there's another way to get at this. Maybe by being entrepreneurial, we are not always in a begging position or asking position. We're in a doing position for ourselves. So we started out with this group. The pharmacy gardens are gardens that we started prior to COVID, and they took off during COVID as we began to meet the needs of senior citizens who were basically dropping like flies. We wanted to make sure that they had the food they needed, that they were outside getting that sunshine. So we started this concept of pharmacy gardens, food that heals. It's a concept. How many of y'all believe in food as medicine? Anybody in here? Yeah, okay, preaching to the choir, I know. So that's how we started. And then with a group of people, there was a text that went out on Instagram saying, anybody interested in helping people during COVID start their own gardens? Anybody working with community gardens? Anybody interested in supplying heirloom varieties of seeds to them? And so the Cooperative Gardens Commission came about. This is a place that you can receive free seeds so you can join. We have our 7th year of the Cooperative Gardens Commission. There'll be a slide that follows this, but if you know you can meet the need of a particular community, you can sign on, and based on how many people you think you can feed, you get a package of free seeds that goes to those communities. This is what we look like. You see, we are a multicultural organization made up of a bunch of people who want to do this work. That's what you have to do. You have to want to do for others, and you have to want to do for yourself and your family, and don't mind getting your hands and fingers a little dirty. That's what it takes to work with us. Okay, so we are planning our first conference. In the past, all our meetings have been convenings, which are our members coming together to discuss issues, the direction we want to go in. This is one of the most exciting ones that we gave. This is Rico Newman from the Piscataway people. And we were able to find a seed for the Piscataway people. They had lost all knowledge of their traditional food. They lost all their land. They had no reservation. They're a state recognized tribe. And so we were able to find this seed. One of our partners grew out from 60, started out with 6 seeds. He grew out thousands of seeds that we've been able to give back to the Piscataway people, to all tribal members. We do not sell those seeds. They are sacred seeds, There are things that should never be on the market. But we do ask for stewards, people who want to help us make sure that those seeds stay alive. You know, they have to. So our first convening was at a farm, and the first crop we grew was sorghum. Sorghum is an amazing crop that is, if you think what George Washington Carver did with the peanut, that's what we're doing with sorghum. You name it, we're doing it. You can pop it, you can make syrup from it. But this machine belongs to Nate. It's an old mill, a 2-horse mill. Of course, people don't have 2 horses anymore. So we had kids pulling around. And, some of you do. Who here has 2 horses?
Grown up.
So, what you do is you put your cane, this is sorghum cane.
They were doing that here. They were putting sugar canes in.
Sugar cane, okay. So you probably, so this, you can use the same mill to produce that. This one, you see, it's made from wood that is it chestnut? Osage orange, which is, we have seed for that if anybody wants it. It's really hard wood. Y'all have Osage orange here? Do you know it?
No.
Okay, you don't think we're from here? All right. So we just had some kids around during COVID. Up to 25 of us were allowed to work according to the governor. He said we're essential workers. And so we were out there doing that work. Are y'all essential workers? Can
Yes.
society live without you?
Yes. No.
Do they recognize you as essential workers?
No.
Well, see, you know, we're going to have to do an exercise in a minute.
That's right.
Talking about that. Because if they don't recognize you, then you need to help them recognize you and the importance. So this is Mama Ira from Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, who was our founding mama, who led the direction. She is the head of what they call the Southern Seed Movement. She also had an amazing, powerful capacity to bring communities together. And so she was able to develop within the organic seed industry a culture of cooperation. This is very unique. Our industry is different from other industries because we believe in partnership, in sharing, and giving and doing for others, and working together. It's the least competitive environment I've ever been in, and we're inviting you to join us in that community. Okay? So here we are, we're cooking the sorghum juice. So when that came, you cooked it over this fire. It was something that my ancestors did at the turn of the century. It was lost. The idea that you cook this sorghum at night, it smells so good. If you're ever traveling in the hills of Durban in South Africa, you smell that delicious smell. You probably have that here because you cook your sugar cane, right?
We used to. The molasses. We used to. We don't do it anymore.
You can bring it back. So that's a smell that permeates the region. Is this wonderful smell of this cooking cane. And what's important about sorghum, it was used as a tool during slavery by the abolitionists. Because sugarcane was the main crop for slavery, they're saying do not use sugarcane, use sorghum, and undercut the industry. Only problem was it didn't crystallize, so it wasn't able to fully compete. But it's there for us now, high in protein, high in nutrients, let's do it. So here we are. Now this guy found us. I wasn't exactly sure how it happened, but really early people began to tell us that we were on the right track. People began to say, no, you should be doing seed work. This is important. There's a place for you. Communities of color need to be doing this work. We need to grow the things that are important.
Who's this guy?
That's Al Gore, Vice President Al Gore. Yeah, so I must tell you that when I realized that people recognize us on the national level, I said, well, how can this be? You know, we're just a bunch of farmers in Southern Maryland doing our thing. But what we realized was that the message is what's really important, that everybody should be growing their own seed. So here we are. This is our first seed packing party. So we grew seeds. We had a lot of seeds donated. Some money was donated to us to get started. And we had this session where we all got together. This is my basement, better known as his man cave, and he'll tell you a little bit about that. Former man cave. It's still his man cave because he will not let us do anything we want to do in this space. But anyway, this is, and we're still here. This is where we started. And this is how we do it. So this was a bean that we thought was particularly important for you. We would like to have many crops that have your name on it, that help people understand. You know, your citizens leave here and they go across the country. They go across the world. But don't they want their traditional foods when they go there? It's so long to have a taste of home. And that's what we're providing. So this is what the seed shop, what it looks like. And we have a new label, we'll show you that later. But it's just a process. This is a perennial garden that's in my yard. This is our farm entertainment field. And this is the barn. You see that barn? It's an old tobacco barn. They used to hang and dry things from that. And this is our home. We're on borrowed land. Church has given us this rent-free, and we keep at it. I mentioned that we work from Zoom. And this is how we are. We're traveling, we're in the field, we're having meetings. If you invite us, we will show up. But we're going to invite you to come and join us before the end of the day. Anywhere we can to support, it's just a work that's on our hearts, the work we need to do. And that's basically it.
Right. I don't know if I need a...
You don't need it.
I don't know if I need a mic. Okay. Right, I'm Hassan Adib, right? This is my wonderful wife right here, right? Basically, I'm following in her footsteps. This is her vision, right? And I said, let me support her. She supported me as I went to graduate school, right? Which took forever, right? And because I had to quit, and then I just came back because they made me write a paper that I didn't want to write. Okay. But then they told me, you don't write that paper, we don't take away all your credits. I said, oh no, I better write that paper. Right, so I'm going to talk about the website. It's not a effort to get you to necessarily buy the website, but basically how we've set up our website, and I'll add a few things that came to mind as the festival was going on Saturday and Sunday, where those of you who are farmers, vendors selling goods right to the market, things that came to my mind that say, oh yeah, they could do that with their website if they're not already doing it, because I saw excellent marketing out there on Saturday and Sunday, right? So I'm just a novice at this, okay? Basically, we have two websites. Just hit the screen. We have a website called Ujamaa Farms, and that presents, as Benita was saying, our basic education programs. We are a nonprofit, right? And our mission is education. Our mission is to increase the number of growers of culturally meaningful heirloom seeds, okay? No GMO, no genetically modified seeds. We fit within what we call the agro-biodiversity movement, right? So the point is that 70%, and I have some literature on that, some 70% of the food crops that existed are now gone. They've disappeared. When you go into the grocery store, what you see is not what's out there on the earth or what has been out there on the earth. Right? As we know, if a climatic condition would occur, as the earth begins to deal with climate change, crops are disappearing. Okay? And the point is once they're gone, they're gone. They're just like animals that become extinct. Food crops can become extinct also. And the way to prevent them from becoming extinct is to grow them out. So we are here saying, yes, you guys have food crops that you've had for decades, for centuries, for millennia, and you need to keep them alive. You keep them alive by continuing to grow them out, saving the seeds, growing them out, saving the seeds. So all that education stuff, let's go back a second again. All that education stuff is on the Ujamaa Farms website, but I'm going to mainly focus, because they're going to talk about Ujamaa Farms, I'm going to mainly focus on Ujamaa seeds. So wait, can we go back? Okay. All right, so we're a nonprofit, and Ujamaa Farms is basically set up as the upcoming event. It has a mission about who we are. We always have a connection to the platform, Ujamaa Seeds, where we sell the seed. We show our administrative team who they are, obviously upcoming events, explanations of what is seed farming, how you can become involved in seed farming, our donors, our sponsors, our partnerships, and obviously a contact form. Okay, you can hit it, all right? All right, now, as I said before, this is Ujamaa Seeds. When you open up Ujamaa Seeds, right? Oh, you did take away my little thing there, didn't you? All right, okay, got it. So Ujamaa Seeds is our platform. You go back today.
No, wait.
All right, you messed up. All right, UjamaaSeeds.com. The other one is UjamaaFarms.com. UjamaaSeeds.com is our platform for selling seeds. What I forgot to put on the slide is that we use Shopify. Okay? We use Shopify. We pay a little bit extra to get a little bit of extra analytics that tell you how things are selling, other things that you could do, etc. So we do use Shopify as our portal to sell our seeds. Right? So we organize our seeds in basically two ways: seeds by crop varieties and seeds by cultural cuisines. We also have growing guides, gifts and goods, and we're beginning to put recipes down there. Because, I mean, what's the point of growing food if you're not going to eat it, right? So we're encouraging people especially to consider growing foods from different cultures. Benita and I are both world history teachers. Were retired world history teachers. So we believe that all around the world, when you look at our Ujamaa Seeds platform, and as Benita showed you, we are a multicultural organization. We basically deal with seeds from every region in the world. That's what this card basically presents. Some of you picked it up at our table. We have an African garden collection, Asian garden collection, Caribbean garden collection, collection from the Americas, European garden collection, Latin American collection, and Southern Soul. So it's not just organized by where, where the particular food crop originated, but also where it has been domesticated or grown out. I always use the tomato as an example. Tomato comes from the Americas, but as we all know, tomatoes basically are something that the Italians took over and turned into a cuisine that is known worldwide with their Italian dishes. But it's the same thing with the potato. It comes from the Americas, but the Europeans picked it up as a major crop. And crops came from Africa. Crops came from the Americas, like peppers, which we mentioned. Okay? All right, so go back for 1 second. So the website organized by crop types like beans, greens, herbs, what is this, hard to read, okras, peppers, grains, tubers, alliums like onions, etc., tomatoes, squashes, fruit, flowers, right, and trees. We have that, all right? Then we'll deal with these later. Those are the value-added things we do, right? But it's also organized by cultural cuisine. You can hit that one, okay? All right. Did you do cultural cuisine? Right. All right, that's good. It's also organized by cultural cuisine. How come the thing was taken out?
It's right there. It's all blurry.
Oh, I had a ring there and you took it out. I had to edit my stuff. All right, okay, it's gone. All right, anyway, so there's a pull-down menu for cultural cuisine, and obviously it's alphabetical. So it says African garden, Asian garden. You see Caribbean garden is highlighted because that's why we see the Caribbean in this one. All right. Then the other ones I say Garden of the Americas, Latin America, etc. All right, hit it. Okay. All right. So in the Caribbean cuisine and Caribbean garden, what will come up is when we find a particular food crop variety seed and we decide to put it in our catalog, we do the research. Where did it come from? Where has it been domesticated, meaning geographically? Who's using it a lot today? All right, and that becomes part of the description in addition to how to use it, all right, how to grow it, how to harvest it. That becomes it. So we are at Ujamaa Cooperative, like Ujamaa Seeds and Ujamaa Cooperative Farming Alliance, trying to emphasize the cultural aspect of the seed crop, of the food. Right, that's so the cultural aspect comes first before we deal with things like, when to plant it, how deep to put the seed in the soil. We deal with that, but we don't deal with that up front. We deal with the culture up front because seeds are part of culture. We wouldn't have these seeds today if people were not preserving them and people were not using them as part of their cultural traditions, right? Right, so when you pull up that particular one, Caribbean cuisine, you'll see several different things that some originated in the Caribbean and some are just highly used by people in the Caribbean, okay, or the Caribbean, like they say, right? I pulled out peppers, okay, just as an example, Scotch bonnet pepper, obviously the price is up there, right? It says, sorry, we run out of stock, so please check back. Rick told me never to say, get rid of it if we don't have it. He says, no, say sorry, we're out of stock, so people will come back, right? We also have growing guides, meaning if you went to the bottom of that page that says peppers, there will be a link to the peppers growing guide, and you can hit the next one, right? Which gives you lots of information. And as Benita said, Mama Ira Wallace, who's our basically mentor, right, and Nate's mentor too with the Experimental Food Network, she's given us permission to use her growing guide. So we don't believe, if you guys are growing seeds, we don't believe they're your competition. We don't believe in competition. We believe that everybody is part of this movement, right, to keep these culturally meaningful crops alive. So we help each other. All of us that are in the seed business and seed movement, as we'll call it, are cooperating with each other because it becomes like part of what we want it to become, part of what everybody believes, that you should be engaged in growing seed, growing food, and the seeds of your culture that have been handed down by your ancestors are the ones you may want to focus on, or the ones that people just like, okay? Right, that too. All right, in addition, this is the last part, I'm almost finished, we do other things like gifts and goods. All right, so we have adults gifts and goods and children's gifts and goods. So what we found is that we want to get children started early in understanding that food doesn't come from McDonald's, which was a big problem in the States. It's fast food, but we have books. Some of our growers are good writers, and so we have books that deal with children on the farm or in the garden, activity books that focus on that, and children telling seed stories. Right? And I think that's about it. The art of saving seeds comes next, and that's Nate.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hassan. I'm going to do this sitting down so I can have the computer here. As Hassan mentioned, I just want to put this up as a beginning to set the tone here. At the top, you see different crops. A survey of seed catalogs in 1903 found 497 lettuce varieties there, 463 radish varieties, 285 cucumbers. And then just 80 years later, in 1983, which of those varieties were still available, being stored in the National Seed Storage Laboratory? And you can see the drastic reduction. And obviously just from going to a supermarket, you see how few different varieties are available. So what we're all about is trying to save what varieties still exist, and also trying to create new varieties for the future by bringing diverse collections of seed together, encouraging people to do their own breeding work and adaptation work, and to collaborate on that kind of work as well. Especially as the climate's changing, that's more and more important. So some of the key considerations, and I know a lot of you have experience with this, so we won't dwell too much on it. When you're talking about seed saving, isolation is super important. And whether you're isolating by distance or time, every species has their own isolation requirements. We're going to talk a little more about that. But also population size. If you're saving seeds, if you only save from a few plants every year, you're going to end up with negative traits piling up on each other generation after generation. Every species has its own population size requirements for a good population as far as saving genetic diversity. Also, and this is one we definitely want to highlight here, is correct species identification. Because sometimes you have a crop that is you may think, oh, this is a cucumber and this is a melon, but it turns out that cucumber is actually one of those what we call Armenian cucumbers that is botanically the same plant as a melon. And if you grow two of them next to each other and try and save the seeds, you're going to end up with something that doesn't look right from both of the ones you're trying to save. Alternatively, there are multiple species of squash or pumpkin, and so you might be able to get away with growing 3 different varieties of pumpkin all side by side, as long as they're all 3 different species that are unlikely to cross with each other. So, you know, even if you only ever use the common name, learning about the you know, which species it is really important. And then for seed farming, especially in the context of working with a group like ours, taking a lot of photos at every life stage is super critical, because we want to make sure that those species are identified correctly. We want to make sure that there's no diseases or pests that are going to transfer through the seed. And so taking a lot of pictures is really, really critical. And then also when you're selling those seeds later, people want to see the seed, want to see what they're growing. So I won't go in detail in these next few charts, but this is information that a lot of it's available online. We have some handouts we can give you. This shows you the population sizes that are required. If you're just saving something, if you just want to get viable seeds, that's the left-hand column there. These are for different species of bean. 1 plant is all you actually need, because the beans are self-fertile, self-pollinate. But if you want to actually maintain the variety, you need significantly more. And then for genetic preservation, that's the 3rd column there, you need even more plants. 20 plants of common bean, 50 plants of runner beans, 20 or more plants for lima beans. And then that tells you the isolation distance between varieties of the same species. So you can, common beans are a great first crop to save seed with, or to produce seed for sale, because you don't need a huge isolation. You can grow a few different beans. You don't have to worry about your neighbor's beans messing with your beans. As long as you're 20 feet away from the nearest beans, you're fine. And if you can grow 20 plants, that's enough to have a really solid population with enough genetic diversity to have healthy generations, many generations into the future. This one has lettuce, is a similar self-pollinating plant, and then some other lettucey plants underneath. And then gets a little more complicated when you get into the nightshade crops, your peppers, your eggplants, your tomatoes. These are also largely self-fertile. They'll pollinate themselves, but you want to have a bigger population for seed-saving purposes. And then you can see the eggplants, it says 300 to 1,600 feet. It means depending on the insects you have around, you can often get away with being as close as 300 feet. But because these are pollinated by insects, if there's a lot of them around, you need a greater distance because they're going to get crossed up. The last one I have here is peppers. Peppers are confusing because there's all these different species, and sometimes they actually will cross with each other. But these are 3 that won't generally cross with each other. However, the top one, you know, a lot of those Scotch bonnets, the seasoning peppers, cayenne peppers, a lot of the peppers that folks grow here, they can cross with each other. So you may notice that saving your own seeds, that you end up with something that doesn't look like what you started with. But it is quite possible to save those all. Usually the rule of thumb with peppers is if you have multiple hot peppers, you can get away with having them a little closer. If you're trying to save out both a hot pepper and a sweet pepper, you really want to be at least 500 or 600 feet away, because you'll end up with hot sweet peppers, and nobody wants that.
Or maybe.
This chart, we can give you the link for this. We may have a few copies as well. This is a really helpful chart that shows you the requirements of multiple different species. Again, each species has their own needs. This tells you what is pollinating it, whether it's insects, or they're self-pollinated, or wind. Things like corn that are wind-pollinated, and also spinach, those require really large isolation distances because the pollen travels on the wind. So you can see there 1 to 2 miles for corn, 2 miles for spinach. The good thing is you're not as likely to have, you know, there's not commercial plantings of spinach around where people are letting that go to seed. Same thing with corn. You probably don't have to worry about that as much here as people do in a lot of the states in Indiana or Iowa, where everybody's growing that GMO corn. If you're within 5 miles of that, you can get the pollen in, and it will contaminate your crop. So these are all annual vegetables. This next one is biennials, which require 2 seasons. I think a lot of these, the seed lots for species that grow here are going to be different. If you have carrots here in a temperate place, those really need to go through a winter. The winter down here obviously is different than the winter that we're familiar with. I've grown in New Jersey for the last 12 years. We can't even leave carrots in the ground. They'll often freeze out. So we'll take them into a root cellar. But there are varieties of a lot of these species that were bred for tropical areas. There are annual carrots that will produce seed without having to go through a winter. Same with broccoli or beets or basically all of these. I wanted to, these are pictures that I took here the other day, and it just illustrates the point that learning the names and the species is important if you're trying to sell these things, because on the left, this is what is called tarragon here, but it's not the same as tarragon most other places. This is also called Mexican marigold, or pericon in Spanish. And on the right is what is known as Damiana, but there are multiple species that are also called Damiana that are cousins of that plant. So just important to try and get all that information. A couple rules of thumb here. Really important to only collect mature seed, not immature seed. So some vegetables that we eat are not mature at the stage that we eat them, like cucumbers, eggplants, green peppers, tomatillos, and summer squash. Seeds have to be completely dry for storage. When you're saving seed, that is it's harder in a place where there's a lot of humidity. But if you have hot, dry days, you can get things completely dry just using without using any additional heat or anything. But if they're not dry when they go into storage, they're going to get moldy. And collecting seeds again from as many individual plants as possible because of those population size requirements. So yeah, this is shows you some beans at different stages when they're ready to eat, when they're starting to dry, and when the pod is really dry and crunchy, that's when the seeds are good. There's some tomatillo on the left is a ripe one. The green one is not ripe. The seeds inside, not going to be quite ready yet. When you're cleaning seeds, there's different processes for dry seeds versus wet seeds. So the dry seeds are the legumes, a lot of the greens, grains, different pseudo-cereals like quinoa, buckwheat, amaranth, and gourds. And then wet seeds are ones that you have to deal with differently because they come out of the crop wet, obviously. Tomatoes, tomatillos, peppers, eggplants, all the cucurbits, your squash, your melons, watermelons, cucumbers, and also a lot of fruits and berries. And then some of these, it's best, they're like this African horned melon, like a tomato and like a cucumber, it has gel around every seed. And it's really the only good way to get that gel away from the seed is to ferment it. So you put it in a little jar, let it sit for 4 or 5 days, and then that gel will start to dissolve, and you can use a strainer and just wash the seeds clean, and then lay the seeds out to dry it, and there you go. We made this list. This is a good one to take a picture of if you're interested if you don't have a lot of space and you're interested in growing seeds for production. These are crops that don't require a ton of space. I've been growing seeds now for a long time, for 12 years, and my main plot is about a 1/4 acre. And from that 1/4 acre, I can produce tens of thousands of dollars worth of seed in 1 year. When you're growing vegetables, you think about okay, you might get a dollar or two for a really nice tomato at a market, but the seeds that are inside that tomato, maybe there's enough to make 4 packets. Then suddenly, if you're selling those packets for $5 a packet, you've got a $20 tomato right there. Squash, same sort of thing. You can have hundreds of seeds inside of the squash. One eggplant can have hundreds of seeds inside. So there is, if you're making a living farming, or you are, making any income farming, adding seeds to your operation is a great way to supplement your income. So seed storage, a few helpful tips here. Again, dry your seeds down completely using fans. Time, usually a week or 2 is enough. Those little silica gel things that you find in food are also really good for getting moisture out of seeds. Securing seeds in rodent-proof containers and insect-proof containers is also really important. Glass jars are great. Plastic will do. Ziploc bags can be eaten through by rodents pretty quickly. Labeling is super important. Label everything. The name of the crop, the year it was grown, the place it was grown. We always put whether it's open pollinated or hand pollinated, that's OP or HP. Double bag inside and label it inside and out. Just writing on with a permanent marker on a bag is not great, because that can still rub off. So write it on a piece of paper and put it in there with the seeds as well. You want to have redundancy here.
You mean in a jar?
In a jar, in your bag, exactly. We use Ziploc bags and then put them inside jars often. Keep them in a cool, dark place, as cool as you can get here. And darkness is important too, because light degrades seeds. If you want to save them for a long time, it's actually oxygen that drives the degradation of seeds most. There are these little oxygen absorber packets you can get where you put one in and it will absorb the oxygen in the jar. Some people have a method where they use like a cotton ball dipped in alcohol and stuff that in at the top of the jar, light it on fire, and it will suck the oxygen out of the jar, burn it off, and then seal it. I've never tried that, but I've seen people who do that. Backing up rare seeds with samples in a freezer is really valuable, because seeds in the freezer can last decades. Seeds out at room temperature can last years. And then learning the difference between what are called orthodox and recalcitrant seeds. This is particularly important in the tropics because there are a lot of recalcitrant seeds. That means seeds that cannot be dried or frozen in the typical way that most vegetable seeds are. So things like ackee seeds or egg fruit seeds, or a lot of the tropical fruits, soursop seeds, they can maybe be dried for a little while, but they're going to die pretty quickly once they dry. So you've got to keep those moist and know that they're not going to last all that long. A lot of rare crop biodiversity can really only be preserved as a live plant, and that's especially true with clonally propagated fruit trees and vines and things like that. So yeah, a lot of Benita asked me to explain a little bit more about that. So when you're planting from a seed, that's the result of the mixing of 2 genomes, and so every seed that you plant is a unique being, like us. But if you have a papaya that you really like, you take a cutting from that is going to be a perfect clone of the parent plant. And
if I took my arm off and put it in the soil,
we could grow a new Assad, sure. But these plants, a lot of these clonally propagated plants, you can also grow them from seed, and that's how you introduce new genetic diversity into the world. Again, fridge or freezer is really useful for long-term storage. A few of these crops, these are sort of rules of thumb, but sometimes, as it says at the bottom, it's always worth trying old seeds because they can still germinate, and often they last a lot longer than these numbers indicate they would. I'm gonna ask these two okras here. Anybody see differences here?
One has seeds on it.
Yeah, that one already has seeds.
One's
on the
pointed.
back. Yep, one's more pointy.
The other one's rounded at the top.
There's also
The grooves
colorful-
the grooves on it are much more defined on one.
Yep, deeper grooves on the left, paler color, rounder. So the one on the left is kind of the platonic ideal of a form of okra they grow in Iraq, where they call it bamia, which just means okra. And when I got some seeds that a friend brought me, most of them looked like that, but there were some that were off because they came from a source that was not didn't have the capacity to fully isolate them from their neighbors. So the ones on the right, once we realized that there were ones that were wrong for the population, we had to rogue those out. And as a, it can be hard sometimes to have to kill a plant just because it's not right. But because we were trying to preserve the variety as the people in Iraq know it and love it, it was our job to get rid of those and to not save seeds in that in the population. And even for our foundation seed, to only save the ones that ripened later when that plant was no longer producing flowers. So, keeping a close eye on seeds when you're doing seed saving is really important, because seed saving is a form of plant breeding. You are stewarding the future generations of this crop. And so it's really important to be paying attention, be out there looking at them. And you're also trying to, the genes that you save one year are what are going to be passed on for decades or centuries. And so making sure that you have you have the traits that you want, the pest resistance, the disease resistance, the vigor and overall vigor and productivity is really critical. The next section, we're going to talk about accessing and stewarding, saving rare crop varieties. And there's going to be some familiar crops in here, but I wanted to start by discussing the U.S. government's seed collection, because a lot of people don't even know that this exists. But there are 606,186, that was as of 2023, there's maybe more now, 606,000 different varieties in the U.S. government collection. These have been collected from countries and peoples around the world since the late 1800s. They are saved in stations all across the country. Some of these have actually since closed, more or less, since this was taken. There used to be one in Alaska too, in Palmer, Alaska. They're always on the bubble with budget cuts. And if you visit any of these research stations where they maintain these seeds, they're much, much bigger campuses than the current staff has the capacity to fill. They're like, some of these places are like ghost towns, except for a small section of it. They really don't have the capacity to preserve those 606,000 different seeds that they've collected. A lot of the people, they're doing their best, but it's tough, and the folks in Washington are not making it any easier. But the really good thing about this system is that the seeds are available to all of us. As long as you can write a paragraph explaining that you want the seeds for a legitimate research, breeding, or educational purpose, it's their job to send them to you, no charge. So you just go to this website, ars-grin.gov. That stands for Agricultural Research Service and Germplasm Resources Information Network. .gov. You can search for whatever you're looking for. It has to be by the Latin name. You can find different traits. And I wanted to just mention too, that word germplasm is a fancy word that just means anything you can use to propagate a plant. So seeds are germplasm, bulbs are germplasm, scion wood cuttings are germplasm. This is an Ethiopian kale that the government is preserving. You can see it's in an isolation cage because this is pollinated by tiny little bugs. And if they don't put it in a cage like this, they'll cross very easily. If you're doing this kind of seed saving, you need to actually supply the bugs for the plants. People put different kinds of flies in there, mostly. So this is the seeds of that one. This is a calendula that comes from Odessa, Ukraine, where I have ancestors from. I've been getting seeds out of this now for a long time, but only in the last few years did it occur to me that I might be able to get seeds that have a connection to my own ancestors. And I found a few, and these pot marigolds are really beautiful. I like this slide because it shows you something about genetic diversity. You see that one plant, kind of the second plant in, has big leaves and not a lot of flowers. And this is a species that used to be used as a vegetable, not just as a medicinal crop. And so it's really, when I found that coming out of this diverse population, this maybe lettuce leaf calendula, I realized that was something I needed to isolate and work on. So that's a long-term project. This is some melons from Ukraine as well. And this is some nigella or black seed from Odessa. That's the flower of that plant. This is a melon from the Maldives. I'm going to talk about a little more. These are some eggplants that come from Afghanistan, from Kandahar, Afghanistan. That's what the eggplant looks like at the eating stage. Here's a watermelon from Homs in Syria. This is a tomato from the same city in Syria. And we've actually worked with refugees, and we're able to get seeds to Syrian refugees in a refugee camp in Lebanon. And they were really, in particular, excited to be reunited with this tomato, because this is something that was really important for their culture and something they thought they might have left behind when they fled. This is my friend Simon looking at some sorghum, which, this was a very bad crop that year. The army worms were destroying it, so he was kind of laughing at how bad a job I had done at growing it, but he was happy to have it. That's a sorghum that actually came from his town in South Sudan, where he grew up, and the government happens to have 7 varieties of sorghum from that town. I mentioned the Maldives earlier. That's another island nation, and it is going to be. It's predicted to be one of the first countries in the world that disappears as sea levels rise, because these are very low-lying coral atolls in the Indian Ocean. This is one such atoll. It's made up of a number of small islands, and one around here is this one. And you can see there's maybe a couple hundred people live on this island, but it's the only place in the world where this Tulsi holy basil exists, Conde Island. This is another island in the Maldives, in Lamu Atoll, and that's where this melon comes from. Because this is the same species as a cantaloupe or a honeydew. It will cross with those. When it's small, you can use it like a cucumber. When it's big, you can use it like, you can add sugar. The gel around the seeds is not sweet, but people like to add sugar to it. It also produces so much food, people use it as pig food or other animal feed. We work closely with the Palestine Heirloom Seed Library and its founder, Vivian Sansour. She's working based in the West Bank and now in New York State to preserve Palestinian seeds, which are at a real severe threat of being of going extinct, including this beautiful purple carrot. Just meeting here with a gentleman. This is the drawer where she found seeds for a watermelon called jaduai, that I have a few seeds with us at this variety. And that's an incredibly important, culturally important food for people from especially the northern West Bank around Jenin. And everyone told her when she said she was looking for it, that she was looking for a dinosaur. And then she found one farmer who had a little bundle of seeds in the corner of his junk drawer. And but without those seeds, it would be gone.
What is it?
It's a watermelon.
What the name is it?
It's called Jaduai. I have some seeds. I'm happy to share a few.
You've grown it up.
And we've grown it out, and it's degraded because that farmer maybe wasn't saving a large population. And when we grow these out now, they're smaller than the variety used to be. The seeds look right, but they're smaller. So we're doing a community project to try and find bigger ones from that population. So we're getting more and more people to grow it and saying only save seed from the biggest one so that we can reselect the original Jaduai watermelon. This is an ancient wheat that they grow. Of course, Palestine is in the Fertile Crescent. It's where wheat was domesticated, and yet almost nobody there is growing the ancient varieties that they used to grow. And this, you can see, this farmer was very, very proud of his crop of that Abu Samra wheat. I have a bit of this wheat with me as well. And I think that will grow well here. They have a beautiful cauliflower that's kind of tinted yellow and supposed to be much sweeter than the standard cauliflower. It's also much bigger, and there's a real threat of that being lost. But people, Vivian explains how they'll have like a beauty contest for cauliflower every year when this stuff is ripe, because it's a real point of pride for people. And in the market, the one who has the best cauliflower, everybody will know, oh, this year Mahmoud's got the best cauliflower. They have the original spinach, where the seeds look like this. If you buy spinach seeds from a seed company now, they're smooth because they've bred out these spikes. But who knows what else they bred out when they bred out the spikes? How much nutrition, how much flavor was lost with that? How much resilience was lost with that? So it's really, saving these seeds is super important. As we're going into this uncertain future with climate change, all of this genetic diversity, especially from places that are hot and dry, is absolutely critical for the future of humanity. This is an image of the seed library there in Beit Jala. And this is Mama Ira again, from Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. She's done such an amazing job of preserving. I wanted to include this one because in her hand, she's got a bucket there of potato onions, which are onions that you can plant like a garlic. You plant a single little bulb in the fall, and it will grow into a nest of 8 or 10 onions by the next spring. And this is an art that's being lost. People buy, they buy onion starts from a big corporation. They buy onion seeds from a big seed company. They buy hybrid onions that you can't even save the seeds of. But something like this, you have to keep it alive to keep growing it. Similarly, this is some Andean crops on the left there. This is something called oca with the Capular family in Oregon. Alan Capular there on the right, who passed away a couple of years ago, sadly, bred this beautiful watermelon, which is called the early moonbeam watermelon. And I understand Benita has a story.
So, interesting enough, I found this seed. It was the first watermelon I grew at the beginning of COVID, and I was told a completely different story about it, and it was called a Hopi. And the story was that many years ago, there were, the Spanish came over on ships, and many of the Spaniards that came over were of African descent. And they brought this watermelon to the continental U.S. It ended up in the hands of Hopi. But the Hopi people understood that most African people living in the Americas were enslaved. And so they decided to save this seed, believing that one day our people would be free. And so when I first found this watermelon, I cried to think that there was such wonderful support from indigenous communities to look out that one day we would be free. And we will be free one day, right? Yeah. And we're almost there now. So as you think of the relationship, let's say in Louisiana, between indigenous communities and black communities, and that celebration of the black Indian, it goes back to that. The seed story is as important as the seed. They don't always have to be exactly maybe true, but they're worth telling and they're worth saving. My story's better, right?
Yeah. And yeah, the Hopi watermelon is called Sikyatko. I've got a picture up on my phone. It looks real similar. The skin maybe a little different, but that beautiful yellow flesh is the same.
And I think the original watermelons were yellow and not sweet. So watermelons have been developed over time, and they're one of the African crops.
So I've made a few new slides for this show based on some of the things we've seen here. I wanted to highlight seeds that are available in your backyard, literally. These are some seeds that I've seen in Puerto Rico, some different crops, just growing wild. On the right is loofah, the same kind of loofah you use to scrub your skin. And on the left is what they call balsam pear. It's like a tiny bitter melon, which probably grows wild in some places
Sarasi is what we call it.
Yeah.
Sarasi.
Exactly. Wild Sarasi. And people, of course, use the leaves medicinally. And this is a plant that people are interested in seeds for. You know, this is something that you can grow on a fence that you're otherwise not doing anything with.
It does already. It grows wild here.
Exactly.
It grows wild here.
You can go out and harvest. You can go harvest those seeds, and people will buy those seeds because for people who don't live in a place where it grows wild, this is a really cool plant.
Do you eat the red part?
Most definitely. We used to call it lizard food as children because the lizards eat it too.
It's so sweet too. I love it. Like it's got that tutti frutti flavor.
I still eat it as an adult.
Yeah.
And that's another way to share culture because many people come from Asia, call it bitter gourd.
Yeah.
And the Philippines, never knowing that it's when it's fully ripe, it kind of bursts open and it's delicious. It can be eaten. So that's how we can share multiple uses of one plant.
This is an image from a place called the El Departamento de la Comida in Puerto Rico, where they're preserving a lot of their own seeds. Some squash on the left that are very similar to the squash we see here. Different kinds of pigeon peas. They call them gandules. This is a beautiful purple yam that a friend of mine is preserving. He found it just growing in an abandoned lot that's becoming jungle at this point. And he saw the vine and said that looks interesting and dug up the root and now is growing that at his house. A lot of these things are on the landscape here, and if somebody doesn't see it and adopt it, it's going to disappear into the forest and never be seen again. But this is food that we can still salvage, and really important history as well. In St. Croix, I had the pleasure of visiting there a few years ago, where we found farmers growing this beautiful white cerasee on the left, some egg fruit on the right.
Go back again?
Yeah.
Egg fruit? Okay.
Egg fruit.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, it's all mushed up, but the fruit is behind it. This is a seasoning pepper population from St. Croix, very similar to the ones that folks grow here. On the right.
And you see, it hasn't been genetically messed with. Look at all the biodiversity that's within that pepper. And I know y'all like seasoning pepper, right? You get peppers that manifest like this.
Yes.
So you could eventually, if you like one shape or the other, this is one of the reasons why human beings have been playing around with this. If you want that orange one, if you want the one that looks like the little bonnet, You can develop this by simply making selections. That's the way our ancestors bred, and we can regain that knowledge also.
This is some cacao on the right, and there are some cacao trees here that are for sale. If you want to, before she leaves, you can grab some. That's the aroma variety, right? Beautiful. This one they told me came from Trinidad. The image of the cacao pods on the right there, and on the left is a holy. They call that holy basil. I don't know if folks are growing the same holy basil here, but I've met a couple people in St. Croix who are growing that. It has a very strong clove-like flavor when you rub the leaf. It's similar to that Nunu balsam that I saw here.
So that's a basil on the left?
That's a basil on the left. Yep. Holy basil. I
The
don't have
purple
seeds
one.
for that here, but I have some seeds back home.
So interestingly enough, there's a similar plant that grows in West Africa, and they call it scent leaf. Have you heard that? And it is treated as a medicinal. It smells a little bit different than our basil, but it's used medicinally. I bet you somebody knows how to use this medicinally. Am I correct? Somebody here?
We use them for teas.
Yeah.
Gee, oh.
Yes, yes.
So also, of course, I couldn't help but see all of the beautiful squash in the farmers markets in St. Croix, and there's similar diversity here. And I think it's interesting. Everybody, when you ask someone, do you have a name for this squash? They're all like, well, we just call this pumpkin. You hear over the last couple days there were 4 or 5 different types of pumpkin, but each of those pumpkins is a unique strain. Each one has traits that deserve to be nurtured and passed on. And you can see just these St. Croix ones. The one on the left has all these warts on it. The one on the right was big and much bigger lobes and wider flesh than some of the others.
And that one came from Yvette Brown. Many of you know her, right?
Yes.
Yep. That warty one came from Yvette and Dale. And then this is just these are pictures I took in the last few days to show you the diversity that you have here. That I don't think people are even thinking about the potential of growing that seed, taking a picture of it, and naming it after the grandmother who is the ancestor that you can trace that to, and then offering those seeds for sale to people. People are interested in that cultural history, that culinary history. These are not just anonymous pumpkins. These are really special, and they don't exist anywhere else in the world.
Let me just say that one of the things that we're really concerned about is the idea of shelf-stable crops. As the climate changes, as the weather changes, access to electricity may not always be available. So if we can develop crops that will last some of these last for months. Some of those watermelons can last up to a year or even longer. And so that is another characteristic that we're hoping you start observing. As you go out, you need to take notes and look at those specifics. Not just take pictures, but also notes about how that's developing. Because we all may need to count on you as times get better or worse. We plan for the worst and we hope for the best. Am I correct?
Yes.
This is the Nunu balsam that some folks were selling to make tea with, but of course it has seeds right there, and they were happy to give us some of those as well. But again, that's one that when you try and Google this and find information about this, you can't find hardly anything online. This is something that exists in the traditional culture here. It's something this is probably a plant that came from Africa. This is another species of basil that was brought here who knows how long ago, and is still grown here. And because it's been grown here, it's unique, and it has the traits that people here thought were important to maintain. This is one other I wanted to put in. This is a celosia. That's another African crop. And people often grow it as an ornamental. It has this beautiful hot pink flower at the top. but the leaves are delicious, and the ones that are available in the seed trade don't have this beautiful large red splotch on it. This is another thing that people outside of St. Thomas would be super interested in growing in their gardens or on their farms.
Yeah, I think that callaloo is a super important thing. I've talked to people here about what is callaloo. And it's so many different things. It's a lot of wild greens, wonderful things that make those things unique to you and your culture. We would appreciate you sharing those and documenting your histories of those things.
This red avocado, again, that's avocado seeds are one that's kind of not something you see very often in the seed trade. Of course, they're enormous compared to most seeds. You're not going to buy a packet of avocado seeds, but people will buy avocado seeds from an interesting variety. And if you have a tree that's unique, and you can handle the, we can figure out the supply chain to keep it wet, because that's another recalcitrant seed that can't dry out. There's people out there who would be very interested in growing those. I wanted to, let me throw this one. I wanted to, when I did a little research online before we came here, I found this article from 2014 about the farmers in this neighborhood. And there was a picture from the farmer's market, and I saw this beautiful eggplant here that looks like, to me this looks like a population. Some of them are white, some of them are purple, some of them are white and purple, and that was probably one person's eggplant. And this was 11 years or 12 years ago. Does this eggplant still exist? Is the farmer who grew this eggplant, do they still have seeds for it? These are the kinds of things that, once they're lost, they're lost. But if you can still salvage it, it's super important to do so.
Yeah, I just want to say that with your partnership, you have a Department of Agriculture, you have a university. These are ways in which you can use some of those relationships. You can leverage those to make sure they can do genetic testing for you. They can do germ testing for you. And so they can also help you identify the botanical names that you have, that you don't know, but you know the common name. You should be working together to find all the different names for one plant so they can ensure that what your grandmother had, you can have as well.
I couldn't tell because the picture's a little blurry, but that might also be an enormous pumpkin in the back left there. And I wonder if anyone's still growing that anywhere. So yeah, looking for historical sources wherever you can find them. I recently came across these beautiful watercolors of loquats, which I know some people grow here. We met one farmer yesterday who said he's growing loquat here. That's an Asian crop originally from East Asia, but there is so much diversity. And when these watercolors were made over 100 years ago, this one is dated March 16th, 1905, the U.S. government actually hired artists to do these before, when photography was not in color and you couldn't get this kind of detail unless you had an artist do it. They had a group of artists doing this work, and you can see the beautiful diversity of loquats. But there's like 100 different ones, and many of these are not available. But there may be a tree growing in your grandmother's yard that is maintaining this diversity.
Yeah, I also want to mention that I was talking to Maria the other day about the fact that, how we use artists, how we employ all the people in our community. You may have somebody who's an artist who could be doing this work for you, who could be building these out. So be thinking about how to identify all the talent that you can bring to support the work you do.
And then this section is about foraging for seeds, as we've already alluded to a little bit. I just have some examples of seeds that I've found out there where I live and where I grew up in the Philadelphia area. This is a perennial ground cherry. It's sweet like a pineapple, and it comes back year after year. This is another plant that I'm sure grows here. It's known as Guadalupe cucumber or creeping cucumber. They're little, also probably growing up fences. This is a plant that's native to the Caribbean. it's also been creeping up the eastern seaboard, and recently reached all the way as far north as Delaware, which is where I found these seeds. That's about the northern tip, and as the climate warms, it's going to keep going further north. But that's another source of perennial nutrition. You don't have to replant it; it keeps coming back, which is super important for climate change, because you don't need to till the soil. You're not releasing carbon into the atmosphere every time you till the soil. You're building soil. You're building carbon sequestering capacity of the soil. These are beach plums that grow along the sand dunes from about North Carolina to Maine. They're delicious. You don't need to spray them with any chemicals. It's almost impossible to grow a plum in New Jersey from like a commercial variety of plum without spraying it, because we have so many pests. But this one, it's fine. It does fine. And it grows on sand dunes, so it can put down 20-foot roots, and it does great in regular garden soil as well. This was a super important indigenous crop called Apios americana in Latin, or groundnut. The Lenape name for it is hopnus, and it is a legume that produces a protein-rich edible tuber underground. And it's one that farmers now are very interested in growing, gardeners, but it's almost impossible to find seeds for it on the market, let alone tubers.
Are the seeds edible?
Seeds are edible. They're smaller than beans. They're like little, they're about the size of a pigeon pea. And they don't produce as much seed. It was really bred
For
as
the
a root
tuber.
crop, and it produces
Can you
abundantly.
go back to the last picture?
Yeah.
Is that your picture?
I don't know whose picture. I don't remember whose picture. I think
I
that's
need that picture.
I think that's a public domain picture. All right, we'll get that one.
I
This
don't
is
have
one
to.
that Iapin and Ujamaa sell.
Yeah, we've started. From foraging, I started getting enough seeds to sell them, and we have them in both the Experimental Farm Network catalog and the Ujamaa catalog. And the last couple of years, we've been also offering tubers that a grower in Montana has been producing from an improved population. There was a professor down in Louisiana who was working with this crop for years, and when he retired, it was dormant for a long time and then was adopted by another professor in Iowa. But there's very few people working with these, what a lot of people will call orphan crops. And I know there's plenty of orphan crops growing here that are growing wild that nobody's really commercializing. This is a species of chestnut called a chinkapin that I really love. This is Yaupan holly. This is the farthest north caffeine-producing plant. It grows as far north as Virginia, and is another one that people are very interested in growing, but it's very hard to find seed stock. Of course, the prickly pear, or cactus pear. This is another cold hardy one that grows in New Jersey, and this is actually a black raspberry, but it's a golden fruited sport of a black raspberry that also I found growing in New Jersey, and people were really excited to grow this from seed. A lot of plants that you don't think of as something you're going to grow from seed, like raspberries. There are people out there who are interested because they understand that only by planting a seed are you adding new genetic diversity to the world. So this is a brief section on seed farming while market farming as a way to supplement your income. So if you're already farming, you're 90% towards seed farming. You just have to let the plants grow longer, and you can get the seeds from them. Even just a section, yeah. It doesn't have to necessarily be all of them. Crops that you already grow can become your seed crops. Seed farming takes less time and energy overall compared to produce farming because seeds are much more forgiving than fresh veggies or fruit. If you're a market farmer, you've got to have beautiful fruit, beautiful vegetables at the right stage of development, ready for market, refrigerated when you need them to be refrigerated, and they've got to look good on the stall. That's tough. I have nothing but respect for people who farm like that. I'm lucky that I've been a seed farmer because I just need to have healthy seeds at the end of the season. And often the healthy seeds can stay on the plant for weeks before you finally get around to harvesting them.
When they're not edible.
Yeah, and that well past the stage when you're going to eat them. So if you've only ever been a produce farmer, it's a different headspace to think about becoming a seed farmer, but it's there's a lot of upside to it. In addition to, of course, all of the really important cultural reasons for growing these. Seed crops can take up way less space than you think as well. You might be inclined to pack them together so you get as much leaves per square foot as possible. But if you're growing them for seed, give them a little bit more breathing room, because when they get bigger and flower, they're going to be this big.
Or if you're doing both, you could, let's say if you're planting collard and you would normally plant them so let's say collard is a really good example. So you're going to plant them every 6 inches and then harvest the ones in between, with the goal of by the time they get to mature in the fall, in the spring for us. I'm not sure whether you're going to get collard to go to seed here, but other brassicas that just keep thinning leaves and thinning the plants till you have them at the desired seed distance, which would be 18 to 2 feet, or maybe even 2.5 feet, depending on the size of the plant. So there's several strategies you could use for getting, we want you to get as much money out of that field as possible.
All right, we're in the home stretch here. This is another thing is important. Intercropping can be really useful, which is just, understanding the relationships between these plants and fitting in a seed crop wherever you can. And again, it doesn't have to be very large. Sesame is a crop that produces abundantly, and you don't need a lot of space for that. We wanted to include this slide about the corporate seed industry to just show you what we're up against. And this is, as Hassan was saying, this is, and Benita was saying, this is a cooperative industry. The small-scale seed world, the organic seed world, the heirloom seed world, we're up against massive corporate powers and the consolidation that they represent. This is from 20 to 2013. This is what it looks like in 2022, and there's even been more consolidation since then.
So what do the little ones represent?
Those little blue ones are individual seed companies that have been bought up by these monstrous corporations, multinational corporations. So you can see the top two here, Monsanto and Bayer. They're now one corporation called Bayer, and they control this sprawling number of seed companies. And every time they buy a seed company, chances are that seed company is not going to continue producing the same seeds they were producing. And so this is what's causing this erosion in genetic diversity that's really affecting all of us. And so with small scale seed companies, we just want to preserve as much as possible. And so sharing knowledge, sharing resources, sharing seeds is fundamental to this industry. And I've also never been involved or never seen an industry that operates quite like this. And I didn't really understand it until I was a part of it. So yeah, it really is a collaborative movement.
And we should point out that the genetically modified, the companies that are producing the genetically modified seeds are doing it not so much to gain profit from the seed, but to gain profit from the fertilizers they sell you and the pesticides they sell you.
And the fungicides.
Right, and the fungicides. They are basically chemical companies, right, that are engaged in food production. Why would the seeds are their low profit margin? It's the fertilizer and the pesticides that they basically make their profit from.
Yeah, if people ever ask you, why are GMO foods bad? It may be not. I'm not comfortable with the idea of having genetically modified food at all. But what makes it so insidious is that most of them that are out there are simply out there because they're attached to an herbicide, like the Roundup Ready crops. So they produce these seeds that you can spray your entire field with Roundup, and it won't kill the corn, but it'll kill everything else in that field, including the life in the soil. And so that's you know, we're getting more chemicals in our food, not less, because of genetically modified foods, despite what the corporations will tell us. One really important thing I wanted to highlight is the Organic Seed Alliance, which it's not just people who are certified organic, it's lots of farmers who just grow organically. And every 2 years they have a conference. It's been in Oregon the last few years. And that's a place where I've gotten to know a lot of people in this industry, and where I've really came to realize the collaborative nature of the industry. They have a giant seed swap where people are swapping really, really amazing seeds. Some company will say, well, we grew this seed, it doesn't fit into our model anymore, or it never really did well in our area, it'll probably do better in an area that's like this. And so they have all their seeds and they just give them away. The panel discussions are also really important. This was one on open source seeds, and the man on the right is Daniel Ujamaa from the Seed Savers Network in Kenya, and he gave an amazing talk about the legal challenges that they have in Kenya in particular, where farmers have been banned from selling their own seeds. They actually just won a court case in the last few months that finally overturned that, but it's still a fight because the corporations in the places where they think that they can exercise political power more than the people, they're going to try and do that. And if they can get a government to go along with the idea of banning seed sharing, banning seed saving, forcing farmers to buy their seeds, you know they're going to do it. And if we're not vigilant here, they could do the same thing here. And you know, we've seen the way the lax regulations and on companies and pesticides that are allowed. It's really egregious what's already happened here.
And they do it under this idea of progress. You're going to be a modern farmer as opposed to being, you know, some old-fashioned kind of farmer. But what they're doing is actually lying. Yeah.
But it's also really important to point out, this is the audience in a workshop I gave at the last conference. It's a very white group. Even, you know, a lot of these people are very progressive people. You can see somebody wearing a keffiyeh there in the front. These are people who care about the world, but you know, the structural racism that exists in the United States is such that it's really hard for people of color to break into this industry, and that's part of what Ujama's real purpose for being is to make sure that you don't have to have the resources to be able to fly to Oregon and the connections to know that a conference like this is even happening, to still understand and learn how to grow seeds, how to be a seed farmer.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes?
Who's those white people?
Those are all farmers. They're all farmers attending this talk.
Yeah.
They got black farmers working for them, right?
Most of these are small farmers. They don't have anybody working for them. But across the industry, absolutely, there's huge racial disparities. There's a lot more Latin American farm workers. In New Jersey, where I live, I work with a farm worker organization there. They're mostly undocumented immigrants who come from Mexico, who come from Central America, who are picking the blueberries, who are working with the landscaping plants, who are doing all of that work behind the scenes. Absolutely. These are just some potatoes from it's hard to see the diversity there, but you know, people bring things like that to these conferences and trade them. This is some green turmeric that a farmer from Hawaii brought and was distributing around. And we included this slide. This is a woman from England, actually, and she organizes a project they call it crowd breeding. We talk about community plant breeding. There's important work to be done, breeding new resilient plants that can stand up to the climate that we're dealing with, and to have crops that are adapted to your particular area. And it's the best way to do that is with is to have a lot of people doing it together. You know, we have this issue where the vast majority of seeds that are sold on the seed market are grown in a few states. They're grown in Idaho, in Oregon, in Washington, where the climate is dry in the summer. They can control everything by irrigating, and consequently, the plants that they're growing are adapted to there. And then you have them selling seeds to people in South Carolina or here or in Maine, and the seeds are they're just not right for those places. What we really need are regionally adapted seeds from every region, from every climate and microclimate. That's how we're going to be able to develop a real system of food sovereignty, seed sovereignty.
And food security.
And so this is these are a couple images from Southern Exposure, where Mama Ira presides, and they're growing all sorts of different seeds. This is sort of a middle scale. They're one of the big companies in the industry. Yes?
When you talk about regional, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Talk about regional, right? People attempt to bring seeds from, Dominica, St. Kitts, Antigua, and customs takes it from them.
Yeah.
So that's a big problem we have with, borders and, customs.
Absolutely. And there are some ways around that. With the U.S. government, working with the government and working outside the government. I'm happy to talk about the outside ways maybe after the official presentation is over. But working with the government, there is a permit called a small lots of seed import permit. And it would be, basically you get this permit and you can get a small sample of seed from any other country. And there are some species that are restricted because of diseases or something, but most of the species are allowed. And I've gone to different countries and used that. You have to mail the seeds back to the USDA from the other country, and you have to put a special label on the package so that it gets diverted by US mail to the inspection station. And then they look at it, they make sure the seeds are exactly what you say on your little manifest. And if they're allowed, they send them on to you like 2 weeks later. And I've gotten already a few hundred seeds that way, because we're doing this, because we have nonprofit status and we don't want the government coming after us. We have to do it the proper way. But yeah, there's some other possibilities.
Yeah, I want to talk about that's really why we're here, to have these conversations. Because as an individual grower, you're limited in terms of your capacity. As a community, you can do much more.
In that process, what is the risk of the seeds themselves not being handled properly, kept at right room temperatures? Where are the safeguards in place to ensure that when you do finally get those seeds weeks later, they're healthy seeds?
Yeah, it can. Generally, it happens quickly enough that it's not a huge deal. I had a case once where they kept telling me they had the seeds at one point, but now they don't know where they are, or something like that. Or the post office said they delivered them, but the people at the station said they weren't there. And finally, they found them in like a bin that they thought they weren't using, but somebody had put the seeds in there. And so that was weeks later. But luckily, the seeds were resilient and they were okay. So as long as they're not exposed to extreme temperatures, they're usually okay in that situation.
And let me say, these people need us now. There was a time when USDA was cool. They didn't need us at all. But now they are under siege as well. And they need advocates and friends. So when we stand up next to USDA, they're so happy to see us. They're like, yay, here comes Ujamaa. Because they know there's going to be a particular group of seeds that we're going to fight for and advocate for. They need us because they are losing their jobs. They're getting early retirement. They're being pushed out. So we're all in it together. And so I think if we think and function like a community with purposeful action, we can get a lot more done than we could possibly do as individuals. Someone said the cooperative model, that's what we're heading toward, right? More cooperation is better.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I showed you the slides before of how you get the free seeds from the government of all that diversity that they've stolen from around the world for the last 125 years. I've requested literally thousands of seeds from the government over the last more than a decade and received them. And we've scaled them up. A lot of the seeds that are in the Ujamaa catalog and the EFN catalog are ones that we liberated from these seed banks, where they're just sitting in freezers. We try to work with the communities as much as possible, with diaspora communities from those countries. I was distributing quite a few of you. I'm sure I handed some Ethiopian squash to yesterday. Those were seeds that I got out of the government collection. And the people who are doing that work, who are actually handling those seeds and filling those orders, those people are doing that because they really do care. Obviously, there are people who are in it for the wrong reasons, but a lot of those people are in it for the right reasons. They know that our organization has a focus on seeds from threatened communities. We've got a lot of seeds from places that have been really touched by war, by famine. One year I got seeds, and all the seeds had the amounts, the typical amounts that they always send. They always send you 200 wheat seeds, or they always send you 50 beans or something, 50 sorghum seeds. But they saw that somebody there recognized that we were getting seeds from places that are really under threat, and they gave me twice as much seed of those varieties to make sure we did well. And they highlighted it with a little blue highlighter, just highlighted that the number was bigger. And that's somebody doing that. I'm sure their bosses didn't know they were doing that, but there's solidarity among a lot of these people too, and it's been really interesting to work with them. All right, I'll go through the rest of these a little fast so we have plenty of time at the end. Adaptive Seeds is another company in Oregon. They operated for years out of somebody's garage. Utopian Seed Project, we work really closely with them with Ujamaa. They're based in Western North Carolina, and they are one of the core members of the Heirloom Collard Project, which was a project that collected, there were these professors in the 1980s who were driving around, and they realized that there's so much diversity of collards in the southeast, and it was all at risk of being lost. So they would drive around and see a patch of collard in somebody's front yard, and they would knock on the door and ask about that collard. And more often than not, the person who was maintaining that was elderly, and they didn't have anybody to pass those collards on to. Maybe they had a small stash of seeds in their fridge, and they were happy to give them to these professors. And then those seeds were sitting in a USDA seed bank for 20 years before Mama Ira realized that collection was there and started getting those seeds out. And then that was the basis of the Heirloom Collard Project. And then 21 of those were grown all together to create the Ultra Cross collards that we had seeds for this weekend. And that diversity, if you grow 21 collards together and then let the bees pollinate them all, you're going to have so much diversity in that next generation that you're going to be able to adapt that to almost any climate. This is some of them in bloom. That's Chris Smith, the founder of the Utopian Seed Project, on the left, and then Mama Benita and Mama Ira there on the right. The Ultra Cross Okra is a similar story with a huge diversity. You can see that one on the left. We call that one the dinosaur okra. That's not the official name. That one comes from Burkina Faso. And then there's just so much diversity to okra.
My grandsons grew that out this summer, and so now we have a lot more seeds.
The Utopian Project is also working on adapting crops that come from warmer climates to the areas where they haven't grown before, but where climate change is enabling them to. They're growing taro in Asheville, North Carolina. They're growing chayote, which I know is, people grow here as well. And you can see, I don't know if you've ever seen this picture doesn't come through, but the ones on the right are spiny. They're just covered in spines. And some people think that that's the best tasting one out there. This is an amazing crop. We've gotten seeds from that EFN is offering this year for the first time. It's an Ethiopian crop called anchovy, and it's a cucurbit crop, so a close relative of cucumbers. That's the fruit on the right, which is not edible, but it makes an edible tuber on the left. It's really drought tolerant. That tuber can keep for a long time. So it's a really, really important food security crop. And it's very localized in parts of Ethiopia. It's not even known, on the other side of the country, but in the east, southern and southwestern part of Ethiopia, it's very popular and a very important food. And then I just wanted to show this is a different scale. This is a seed company called Ernst in Pennsylvania, and they are mostly focused on native seeds like wildflowers, and they sell them to state highway commissions for putting wildflowers on the sides of the highway or things like that. And they're growing seeds by the ton. It's a completely different scale, but it's helpful for a small company like ours that there are people doing it like this, because we're able to buy seeds from them wholesale and then offer them retail. And that's one of the ways that we're able to grow our business and how we've started both Experimental Farm Network and Ujamaa, get seeds from larger scale companies that have practices that we're okay with, in order to get access to seeds that you might not otherwise have. They're growing this is like a field of goldenrod on the right and mountain mint on the left. They make some really nice honey with these fields too. Some of the helpful small-scale equipment, just to show you that you don't really need much to do this, are glass jars. This is a homemade tool called a zigzag aspirator that's used for cleaning seeds, for separating the seeds from the chaff. It uses a shop vac and this wooden contraption, and it really does the charm. It really works like a charm. We can clean seeds to be saleable with just a simple machine like this. But you can also accomplish a lot of the same with fans and buckets, just winnowing the seeds in the air. Screens like this are also really, really useful. And this is another simple tool, a piece of cardboard with cardboard on the edge so that the seeds that are round can roll off and the seeds that are flat you can discard. Something like an old-fashioned sieve like this can be really useful for processing these eggplants here. This is a contraption that Will Bonsall developed to help him harvest ground cherries, husk tomatoes, which fall off the plant, and that's when you harvest them. This is a simple foot-powered threshing machine, a hand-cranked winnower, and a foot-pedaled thresher. This is an old grain cleaning machine, and this is a bean sorting machine with wild strawberries on top. I didn't have a better picture of the machine, but it's simply a treadle-powered conveyor belt. You put the seeds in the hopper, and then you sit on the other end, at the end of that little conveyor belt. You use your foot, and the beans come, and you just put the good ones on one side, the bad ones on the other, and it just enables you to move really fast in a way that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. So now the last section is how to grow for Ujamaa or EFN or Southern Exposure, and we're going to talk about some of the practicalities with our friend Rick.
Yo,
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Nate. I know we're getting close to 3 o'clock and everyone has a lot of questions. I guess my first question is anyone interested in growing for Ujamaa at this point?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to tell you a little bit in 5 minutes or less how you're going to go about doing that. What we do at Ujamaa is obviously we're helping people at any stage. So if you just want to learn how to grow, we have classes for that. If you're wherever you're getting started on your growing journey, we're there for you to help. We're in the community all the time. We have an urban farm. We also have a rural farm. We have in-person workshops. We have a conference coming up. We're always traveling. We have markets around the country. That's how we figure out what people care about and what people want to grow and how we can connect with their desires. But what we have is a company, a seed company, and we have ways that we ask our growers to be able to grow in order that when we sell the seeds, we know we're selling quality seeds. When people came up to our booth today, or yesterday and Saturday, a lot of people asked, are they organic? How do I know if they'll grow here? Where the seeds come from? And we can answer those questions because we make sure that the growers that are growing for us, we vet them and we teach them along the way. So we have regional seed hubs across the country. We have 9. We have one in the Mid-Atlantic, one in the Upper South, one in the Lower South. Nate is a coordinator for one up in the Northeast. We have them out on the West Coast. We have growers so far as Puerto Rico. So what we have is a Lower South, but we're hoping to create a Caribbean seed hub. And those hubs have coordinators that go and connect with farmers to give them a little bit more training experience. Also, each year, we kind of evaluate our catalog. We look at what's culturally meaningful. As we have conversations like this, we figure out what people want, and we develop a 2026 grow out list. And that's what we send out to our growers. So you get that either by email or in the mail, however is most useful to you. And you can look down that list and you can say, hey, I want to grow tomatoes, or I want to grow cucumbers or squash or those sorts of things. And from that list, you select. And what we're going to do as a company is figure out how much we can sell in a given year. And right now, what we're hoping to do is each year we have growers produce what we hope to sell in 2 or 3 years. So that way, each year, we can have a greater and greater number of seeds in our catalog.
One other thing, we have the seeds that we'll send you if you're interested, but we're also, again, incredibly interested in the seeds that you bring to us.
Absolutely. So it's not, again, it's always never a one-way street. It's a conversation. So we go out and we find a grower. Like, you guys are amazing growers here. We go and we look at your stalls and we know what you're already growing, and we want to figure out how we can be a part of that. So we don't come in and say, hey, I want you to grow beans. We want to know what you like to grow. We want to find things that you're already growing, and we want to highlight those in our catalog. But then we also, in turn, if there are things that make sense for you in this environment, we want to make sure that happens as well. So hopefully when we come back in 3 or 4 years to this market, when people are walking up and saying, hey, how do I know this is region adapted? We'll say, hey, we have a selection of seeds right here that were grown right here in St. Thomas, St. Croix, Puerto Rico. So we know these seeds are there. Because right now we have a lot of seeds that we know that are grown in North Carolina, New Jersey, California, Washington State, Puerto Rico, and our goal is to have more and more seeds that are grown right here in the Caribbean. So again, you're going to have, if you want to be a grower, you're going to fill out a form online. Someone is going to contact you. You're going to look at that. You're going to onboard. So we're going to talk you through what it is you want to grow, how you're already growing, what space you have, what capacity you have, and then we're going to help you select some good seeds. And then we're going to have conversations again about what you're growing to figure out if there are things that you already have in your field that we can get immediately. Because there may be something that you're already growing in your field that you have seeds for, that you can send this right to us and we can have them in the catalog once they germ in a couple of months. Or we can find out what your crop plan is and again add to that so that we can have 3 or 4 different crops for 2027. So sometimes we have conversations from people and we get, I think we were at a conference down in Nashville, and we talked to a woman who we found out was at a community garden and grew a ton of okra. So she gives away a lot of okra because she believes in food insecurity to make sure people have access to it. She also sells some of it. She also produces some of it. But then she's like, I have these trash can full of dried okra. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Maybe I'll give a little bit away, but I usually just pitch it. And I'm like, well, bring it tomorrow. So she brought it tomorrow. I sat down there with Mama Benita and Mama Ira, and right at the middle of the conference, we sorted all, processed all that okra.
I did some too, remember?
Yeah, you did a little bit. Some was over there. at least one pot. Yeah, you did some of it. But we also had a partner from Seed Savers Exchange. So he then took 100 of those seeds, and he's like, I'm gonna put them in an envelope, and I'm gonna take it back to our guys, and we're gonna germ test it. So we took the seeds back to Maryland. He took the seeds, got it germ tested in North Carolina. I'm sorry, germination tested. I'm sorry, I always say germination tested in North Carolina. And then now we have the results back, and we can get it into the catalog. And so that's kind of how quickly we can do it. We're not gonna say we always do it that quickly, but again, we kind of figure out what's happening in the community. And again, the reason we have regional seed hubs is because obviously from Maryland, we can't come down here and say and know all of the growing conditions and what's happening here. But also, we want you to be invested in what you do. So it's not our goal creating seed hubs for us to control it. It's for you to control your seed hub, for you to kind of find, again, your regionally adapted crops, for your crops that you're already growing, things that are significant for you. And actually, a woman earlier today brought up a coloring book that she put together with her grandmother right before she died. And she's like, I got a grant to do this. It's a beautiful coloring book. Everything was drawn by my grandmother at 89. She died at 92. I've been able to kind of hand it out. But I saw that you have a coloring book. Is there a way for this to get it on your platform? So we now have a copy of it if you have another project. So we're going to go home. We're going to figure that part out. So again, we're invested in the community. That's how we're going to organically grow. We're not profit driven. We're sustainable. We're sustainably built. We want to go and create a model that's sustainable. We know as farmers, you have to make money to kind of exist and keep moving forward. We want to support that effort. And so we have a lot of handouts. Again, it's online, but we can show you what that intake form looks like for anyone who might be interested. And we have a lot of questions.
Excuse me. I want to know, which country going to Tabasco peppers and the seed is so hard to found?
Tabasco.
Tabasco.
Yeah, Tabasco.
Tabasco sauce. Yeah,
it comes from Louisiana.
Louisiana.
Yeah,
We can get you that seed.
Yeah.
And
So you want some of those seeds?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you know, we can't find the seeds so hard, like it's only them alone who want to have the pepper.
And that's a perfect example. We get it. And all we ask is when you get them, grow a little bit of them, send a little bit back to us. And so we also have two different ways that we kind of collect our seeds. If you grow in enough that we can sell commercially, we're obviously going to do that, and you saw our package. But we also have a grow out collection. Because again, we understand that every seed isn't meant to be sold, and every time you grow, you're not going to grow enough to be able to sell. And so we actually have, I guess at this point, 2 freezers bursting with seeds that we've gotten from people across the country that we're preserving. And that's kind of a little bit of what Nate's doing. We actually are in the process of getting a grant to get even more capacity to store some of that work. So there's a lot of different ways we're growing. And what we want to do is just continue to have this conversation and to figure out how we can support the growth that's happening right here in St. Thomas.
Let me also, as I said before, we are an education organization. Our objective is not for you to necessarily, for any grower, to grow seeds just for Ujamaa. Our objective is to teach growers how to have an additional income with seed growing. We're not asking anyone to stop growing for produce. Absolutely continue growing for produce. I'm sure you have a field somewhere that you're not using, not growing for produce.